Andy Griffith, one of America's most beloved television actors, has died.
And now Dean Richards is here with more on that tragic death.
Yeah, you know, when you think about it, there are really only just a handful of shows, TV shows, that have been on the air continuously since their original runs in the 1960s. Andy Griffith's show is one of those, and today we lost a legend.
Sarah? Me? Yeah. It's all right. Any sheriff business comes up, well, you can call my home phone. All right. Oh, she's fine.
With its familiar whistled theme song, The Walk Down That Dirt Road in the fictitious town of Mayberry, North Carolina, is where American fell in love with Andy Griffith. This morning at 7 a.m., he died in his home in Dare County, North Carolina. Andy Griffith was the straight man to the likes of the hilarious Don Knotts, Ron Howard, and a beloved cast of regulars, noted for its homespun humor and its small-town values that was a hit for 8 seasons on the network, and then in reruns ever since for the last 41 years here on WGN. He began as a singer, but he took his down-home humor to comedy albums and on Broadway and in the movies. His character as a small-town sheriff was first introduced on the old Danny Thomas Show. That was spun off to become a TV classic. And then from 1986 to 95, starred as the Southern lawyer who always outsmarted his opponents in his second TV hit, Matlock. In an interview with the Archive of American Television, Griffith talked about the amazing longevity of his original series.
All those fine comedic actors like Don Knotts and Howard McNear and Jim Neighbors and all of them made it. They represented that little insane border that was Mayberry. We didn't know that when we started it that it was going to last that long or influence so many people. We were just trying to do a good show.
And in 2005, when he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, then President George W. Bush said that TV shows come and go, but there's only one Andy Griffith. There was no cause of death given. Andy Griffith, 86 years old.
You know, more than any other actor, it seemed to me that he was the character that he played on screen. At least that's what we wanted to believe.
It sure seemed that way. I never had an opportunity to meet him or to interview him, but in every interview that I've ever seen, he just seemed like he was the rock around which all of this madness went on. And you can still watch these shows early in the morning on WGN and laugh your head off, even though you know exactly what's going to happen.
He was so genuine. Dean, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks.
Some actors are so identified with the character they portray that when the actor passes away, it's almost as if we lost the character as well. That's the way many of us felt when we got word that Andy Griffith, also known as Sheriff Andy Taylor, died today. He was 86. Bill Whitaker now on the man who brought the fictional town of Mayberry to life.
When you think of Andy Griffith, whistle a little tune.
And I can walk through airports today and hear that theme whistled behind me.
Andy Griffith's long career stretched from nightclubs to radio to movies to music. But it was a role as a small-town sheriff that made him beloved to millions of Americans.
Okay. And that was just twisted off. It's easy, that thing.
Good. Just make sure it clears your underwear.
Right.
Andrew Samuel Griffith was born in a town much like Mayberry, Mount Airy, North Carolina.
I'm not just an entertainer. I'm an influence, a wielder of opinion, a force.
Griffith's first film was a departure from the image we have of him, a dramatic role as a hobo turned power-hungry TV star in A Face in the Crowd. But his next big film was a smash, No Time for Sergeants.
Every last one of them, all yours. Golly.
Memorable also for a small role by a future collaborator, the late Don Knotts.
What we do here, Private, is to evaluate your manual dexterity on a time scale in relation to digital visual coordination.
They would work together in what most critics consider one of the top 4 or 5 sitcoms ever on television. The Andy Griffith Show spun off from guest appearances Griffith made on the old Danny Thomas Show. For 8 years, Andy Griffith played straight man to Mayberry's lovable collection of characters and taught heartwarming lessons, as when Sheriff Andy Taylor's son Opie killed a mother bird with a slingshot and then was prodded by his father to raise and release the baby birds.
Cage sure looks awful empty, don't it, Pa?
Yes, son, it sure does. But don't the trees seem nice and full?
I've tried to serve in storytelling in the old Griffith Show by just telling the story of love.
Griffith left the show at its peak and went on to another successful run as a defense lawyer in Matlock, and spent his later years recording gospel albums. But Andy Griffith's down-home sheriff will stand as one of the great roles in television history.
Andy Taylor was a very good man. He's a lot better man than I am.
Not by much. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Hollywood.
Actor Andy Griffith is being remembered tonight. The star of music, TV, film, and stage died today at his North Carolina home. Griffith's career spanned more than half a century, but he will always be best known as Sheriff Andy Taylor. That was his character in The Andy Griffith Show, the TV classic set in the town of Mayberry.
The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith.
All right. Face is like a coffee pot, your nose is like a spout, your mouth is like a fireplace with all ashes out.
I'd like to talk to you about good things to eat, like Swiss cheese on a crisp Ritz cracker.
Say, aren't you Ben Matlock, the famous lawyer?
I'm Ben Matlock. The United States honors Andy Griffith.
I'll tell you what, forget all the other stuff I ordered. Just bring me the damn pie. It's time for me to pass this on to you folks.
Life's funny, you know. Oh, yeah.
Andy Griffith was 86.
Hollywoodie is mourning the loss of a legend. Veteran actor Andy Griffith has died at the age of 86. News Channel 3's Alexis Christoforous looks back on his life.
Who doesn't hear the whistle and remember the Andy Griffith Show? From 1960 to 1968, it was a huge hit, and the star, Andy Griffith, played the show's proverbial straight man.
I meant charity.
I didn't charge him nothing.
I meant something for the joy of giving.
I enjoyed it.
I love playing straight because you get to see the show and be in it at the same time.
Andy Samuel Griffith's life paralleled his show in many ways. He was born in a small town in North Carolina, much like the fictional Mayberry, and grew up in a poor but loving home. He was studying to be a minister, but changed his major to music. His breakthrough role was in the 1957 film A Face in the Crowd.
Here she goes, Mama Guitar!
Years later, he revealed Sheriff Andy Taylor was supposed to be the funny man, until his friend Don Knotts got into the act.
Don called me when he saw the pilot and said, "Don't you need a deputy?"
And the rest is comedy history.
Oh, Andy, you know we couldn't have given a sobriety test to Otis last night.
Well, why not?
He was too drunk.
He turned to drama in the 80s and 90s, starring in Matlock. In 2005, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Honor. A working actor. To the end of his life. Alexis Christoforous, CBS News.
This morning, Ron Howard, who starred as Opie on The Andy Griffith Show, tweeted, quote, "Griffith's pursuit of excellence and the joy he took in creating served generations and shaped my life. I am forever grateful. R.I.P. Andy."
Meantime, back in this country this evening and to an American treasure lost. Today we learned Andy Griffith has died. All day long, so many remembering that fictional town of Mayberry, that sheriff, and that whistle.
It was the whistle heard in American households for nearly a decade in the 1960s.
Sure.
Andy Griffith was America's sheriff in that small fictional town of Mayberry, where his wisdom, his wit, his folksy sense of humor led that quintessential American town. The Andy Griffith Show debuted in 1960, a young Ronnie Howard playing the widowed sheriff's young son, Opie.
You got some kind of problem?
Well, I got something to ask you. Something important.
Yeah? Well, go ahead.
Can I run away from home?
And who could forget Aunt Bee?
Aunt Bee, come in this house.
And Don Knotts as the bumbling Barney Fife. He and Griffith were one of America's most popular comedy duos.
Thank you, reliable Barney. Yeah.
Well,
We didn't know that when we started it that it was going to last that long or influence so many people. We were just trying to do a good show.
the fictional town of Mayberry was much like the town where Griffith was born, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, June 1926. He grew up singing and playing the guitar. Few knew he began his career as a high school music teacher and started performing in the 50s, on Broadway and in the movies. His film debut, playing that singer from Arkansas who becomes a TV sensation, in A Face in the Crowd.
Now, you good people ain't so dumb you don't know what's important.
Decades later, he would win over American viewers again as Matlock. Griffith then won a Grammy for an album of hymns, music, always one of his first loves.
Took my wife to the barnyard and I set her down to supper. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Oh, mule, you kicking mule, oh, mule, I say, I ain't got time to kiss you now, my mule's running away.
And in 2005, Griffith received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. President Bush thanking Andy Griffith for being such a friendly and beloved presence in our American life. And tonight, the boy who played Opie, Ron Howard, tweeting, "His pursuit of excellence and the joy he took in creating served generations and shaped my life. I'm forever grateful."
I don't want to leave you, Paul.
And I don't want you to leave, Opie.
Opie and his dad, America, remembering the sheriff tonight.
Who could forget the familiar theme of the Andy Griffith Show? Many of us grew up with him, and now a fond farewell to a TV legend. Rick Leventhal, live in our New York City newsroom. Rick?
Megan, he was America's favorite TV sheriff, and later as Matlock, one of our most popular defense attorneys. Legendary actor Andy Griffith passed away this morning at age 86. In a statement, Griffith's family says the actor died peacefully at his coastal home and has already been laid to rest on his beloved Roanoke Island. He was a Hollywood star, but he stayed true to his North Carolina roots, his roles reflecting his deep respect for his upbringing in Mount Airy. North Carolina's Governor Beverly Perdue called him the state's favorite son, saying Andy Griffith graciously stepped into the living rooms of generations of Americans, always with the playful charm that made him the standard by which entertainers would be measured for decades. He'll probably always be best known as Andy Taylor, the sheriff of the fictional town of Mayberry, North Carolina. The Andy Griffith Show initially aired from 1960 to 1968 and was in reruns for decades, still runs in a number of markets across America. Later in 1986, he became TV's Matlock for 9 years. His accolades include induction into the TV Academy Hall of Fame and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, awarded by President George W. Bush in 2005. Among the friends and colleagues paying tribute is director Ron Howard, who played Griffith's son Opie on The Andy Griffith Show. On Twitter, Howard wrote, "His pursuit of excellence and the joy he took in creating served generations and shaped my life. I'm forever grateful. R.I.P. Andy." You know, President Barack Obama is also weighing in at this hour. He offered his condolences, calling Griffith a performer of extraordinary talent who warmed the hearts of Americans everywhere. And Megan, I think I can hear the theme song being whistled across America right now.
Absolutely right. I know my Nana was a huge fan of his in the Matlock years, and we grew up with those reruns of the show in the early 70s. He will be missed. Rick Leventhal, thank you.
Sure.
Andy Griffith, dead at 86. We'll be right back.